So let's talk about Mr. Garner. I can't breathe. When I hear that, I'll use just us sitting here as an example. If I hear you say, I can't breathe, my instincts are going to automatically say, okay, what's going on? What's wrong? Is there something I can do? What do you need? So in your training, if you're in a takedown situation or you're having to do an arrest and the person is resisting, from what I could see in the footage, obviously I wasn't there, but his head was pressed down when they did do the, I guess it's called the chokehold maneuver, brought him down. While he was down, they were pressing his head.
No, it was the same officer who choked him.
Right.
Was pressing his head also.
Pressing his head.
So.
And he's saying, I can't breathe. From what I saw, and correct me if I'm wrong if he saw something differently, the officer that was pressing his head didn't react. It wasn't even a, let's see what's going on.
Again, if there's no one there who has any inkling or caring for this victim or that person that's in a law enforcement position, in our capability of doing something like this, you need someone there. Someone should always be there and willing to think for the victim. If
Okay.
I was in that position, if I was down there, if these officers were on top of me, someone has to have that in the back of their mind. You've got to be able to pull that forward and take charge of that scene. No one did that. No one pulled that officer. Hey man, get off of him. Back up. As the officer, I've done that. I've done that on several scenes. I've caught officers' arms. Okay, we got him cuffed. Hey, back up. No, I'm not breaking any code or silence. The truth is the truth. Now, I'm not going to be sued behind something you do.
Right.
I'm not going to stand up there and lie for you about something you did to someone. When I can speak out, I have a voice also. If I'm there on that scene, I can stop this.
Right.
I'm in the place, I'm in the position to stand up and stop this. And if none of those officers did that, as I heard that and saw that video, it's appalling. No one said, get up off his neck. I mean, there's nothing wrong with me pulling this officer. Hey man, back up, get up, get up. You may hate me later for it, but it's enough of us to subdue. The guy is down.
Exactly.
He's not swinging, he doesn't have a weapon, he's not
Right.
fighting us. He's in a vulnerable position now of this arrest. I mean, you could be bad, you could be the worst person in the world, but once you're cuffed, there's an unwritten, I mean, there are most departments, once you're handcuffed, the fight is over.
Right.
Everybody cease. Once a person is down on it, if he's even down and not trying to get up, someone's got to be in control.
Right.
If there's no one in control, you got a victim. And everybody's there now trying to cover it up.
All right.
That's my contention. And to have it on video and not get an indictment is, that's dangerous for our society. It really is. It's fringing on major protest, major rebellion.
And that's what we've got going on. I mean, it's still happening. It's happening in New York. It's happening in Boston the other day. It happened out in California. I mean, it's happening everywhere. And we need to be heard.
But my recommendation for that is these departments are able to make supervisors. You can make a supervisor. I mean, of course, they'll argue the amount they have in the budget. You can't pay for too many supervisors. Who wants a whole lot of supervisors? But what I found out is once you give a guy a little ranking, he seems to want to protect his job. And he'll seem to want to, maybe step up a little bit and be a little bit more responsible. Those guys that really didn't really want to in the first place. But we need supervisors on the scene. I would say a minimum per sector, whatever beat or area that you're working, there got to be two supervisors out there, working with these officers. I mean, the officers appreciate it too. I mean, unless you're a really bad supervisor, I mean, you have those too.
Right.
But you've got to be able to have someone, stand by and wait for a supervisor to get there. If you've got a guy, Mr. Garner was not running away. He had nowhere to go. They knew who he was. He could have been issued a citation.
Well, the other thing too about Mr. Garner's situation, he was down. I heard, and I don't know how true this is, obviously, I wasn't there, he had asthma. So I think that may have had something to do too with his breathing. In my opinion, seeing him down there on the ground, he was not moving at all. Because I thought even when he was saying, I can't breathe, he appeared dead to me at that point. Because that's how still he was. So again, the number of times he said it, no one is reacting. His arm was behind his back and his head was pressed to the cement. No one's reacting.
Right.
And then I see later on, Anderson, one pat him. It's going to be all right, buddy.
Well,
This is after he pleaded, I can't breathe, for numerous times. What's going to make it all right?
let me make this clear too. It didn't matter what the race of the victim was or the officers there. If you don't have someone on that scene that has compassion. My first job as a law enforcement officer, I was trained with a department that stressed the law enforcement code of ethics. As a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve mankind, safeguard lives and property,
Exactly.
protect the innocent.
Where is
against
that?
deception. Good question. I don't know why they're not enforcing that. To let you know, you have a job out there. Your job is working for the citizens. I've worked with supervisors who, you work for me. No. They didn't like me that much out there. I guess you could tell there's a certain element, in every
Right.
job, every profession,
Absolutely.
every walk of life. Unfortunately, here in the continental United States, you've got that group that think you're supposed to work for them.
Right.
No, in this line of work, in law enforcement line of work, you work for the community in which you have been given that badge and you've been given that authority over. You work for them, in essence.
Mm-hmm.
You don't work for somebody else and no other police officer. You work for the citizens that you work for.
Right, and that's what I thought.
Mhm.
And for me to just kind of sum it up, isn't it to protect and serve?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're feeling now that we can't. And granted, I want to make it clear, I don't believe that every law enforcement person out there is out to harm.
No,
I don't believe
not
that.
by far. This is a very few that, if you notice, this particular officer was not even in uniform. But there are a particular, and I'm speaking on the Garner case,
Right,
or Traylon case either. This guy was not a uniformed officer.
exactly.
Either. But there's only a few out there that actually do this on those scenes. I mean, I've had scenes where I've had to fight guys, physically getting altercations with them, and the outcome has worked out because you know when to cease the struggle. The fight is
Right.
over, and not only do you because they're bad people all over. They're bad, white, black, Asian,
Absolutely, absolutely.
Arabic, everything. But you have to be able to know when to cut it off.
Right.
That's what's lacking. And there are some officers out there, there are a few, and most departments kind of know. This particular guy in the Garner case had previous lawsuits pending on him. One
Wow.
already sustained, and then there was one pending at the time of this Garner incident. So they know who these people are. And even as another officer, you know who these people are. So when they are on your scene, and they're there, you need to take charge. You need to be able to control them.
Right.
Because if you can't, you may be sitting up there alongside this other officer in the pending lawsuit.
Right.
And he'll be looking at you like, oh, well, you were there too. He should have done something.
Right.
You should have stepped up. Yes, and I blame every officer that was out there in that particular Garner case.
Absolutely.
Somebody should have stepped up. Someone should have said, that's enough, stop. The man is trying to bring.
Well, you have 5 kids,
Yes, 3 sons and 2 daughters.
so tell us, what do you say to them? being that you've been on that side and now you're
Yeah,
kind of behind the
might add there,
scenes?
all my sons are grown men, young men, now with families themselves, all of them have families. But when they were young, I told them, I believe like most African-American families, you encounter a police officer or an officer, first you do cooperate, you show respect. You show respect. Now, if you don't get respect back, that's not a green light to be rambunctious or totally disrespectful back. That's the time you take note and you try and get to someone who you can report it to, if allowed to. But cooperation is the essence of surviving those encounters.
To wind this down a little bit, all of us, are feeling a lot
Yes.
with
Yes.
these situations. I'm glad that you're able to shed some light and to hear you
Yes.
say yourself that a lot of the situations that we just talked about were not handled properly.
No.
That's great to hear from you to say that, and it's not that you're being biased to obviously the police, being that you have been in that role.
But to be honest, I don't think he cared much about Mr. Brown. Shooting Mr. Brown at the car, if Mr. Brown didn't die of his injuries or sustain a fatal wound at that car, in my opinion, that shooting should have been over. The shooting aspect of it should have ceased. Everything, he would have still been legit, no matter what, the finger, he would have been legit. I mean, that fear level placed on him in there,
Right.
if he was in fear, in fact in fear. But we have aggressive officers. There's no point about it. There are officers who are aggressive, and they shouldn't be in those type situations.
Right. Well, former Detective Anderson, thank you. Thank you
Pleasure.
for all of the information that you shared with us. I can honestly say I feel a little better hearing what you had to say, and especially with your background and your experience. And hopefully out there in our audience, we're getting the same. I do want to say with Bee Sting Security, if you do have some needs, certainly check him out. Is there any way they can reach you?
Yeah, I'm on my webpage is www.ramstinger.org. That's ramstinger.org. And if you have parties or something like that and you need someone to stand out by the door, behind the back, or something like that, contact us. All that can be we can be reached through ramstinger.org. My phone number is there to contact me. I also do escorts if you plan on taking a party somewhere. You need a driver, you need someone to
Right.
drive you to and from these locations. Bee Sting Security is people you want to take you back and forth.
Okay. And remember, hey, this is how we do it. It is what it is. It is done. Until next time, au revoir.
Cruising through A-Town, horses on my shirt.
You see
Mess
that?
with the kids and you're bound to get hurt.
That's how we
Show
turn
to
up
the
on the
best
Wende Neen show.
Plenty money to be made when the needs are paid. If you want to find me, let's